Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Katie and you haven't heard from me in a while, but it's time to talk 2026. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Just Scribble B6 Slim quarterly planners. If you want like a full lineup Techokai video from me, that should be filming and whatever soon. I am planning on making that, but today I'm just going to talk specifically about this. Obviously, it's not an unboxing. I've already unboxed it, but kind of first looks, first impressions of what I may or may not use it for, why people who might be looking up this video because they're interested in Just Scribble might want to consider this particular one. So that's our task for today. These came in, I pre-ordered them, I don't know, back in, who remembers anymore? I pre-ordered them and they arrived last week. I got a set of 4. I only have one here to show you because I've put the other ones away. I do have another one here on the side that I've like scribbled on a little, which feels appropriate, so that we can talk about how I'm going to use them because they are very flexible and undated. And so we'll talk about my first ideas. You'll see that like I've put meal planning on like 5 different spreads because they could do meal planning and I haven't decided where. So stay tuned for that. But first let's open one of these up and go through it. So these B6 Slim ones from Siobhan at Just Scribble come in these quarterly books, which, I mean, I'm sure Siobhan didn't make these only for me, but it kind of feels like she did. I know other people are buying them and using them and excited, but it feels like it was made for me because this year I've been in a B6 Slim sterling ink and I've loved the size, but before that I was coming from a sterling ink B6 that was like a half year, and I'm finding being in a whole year not to be my jam. So earlier this year, before these lineups had come out, I was talking to my friends and I was like, I think I want to go back to half year, or like quarterly would be even better. And so when Siobhan launched this, I was like, well, I'm sold, whatever, like done. So anyway, it's quarterly. It's kind of about the size of like a sterling ink compact. I don't have the exact measurements comparison, but like in the hand, that's what it feels close to. Here's the Just Scribble from last year. That this is a half year book with the 52 GSM, and you can kind of see that this one is a little more than half, I think, the width. There are measurements on the Just Scribble website. So anyway, that's perfect. I was so sold. So I had intended on maybe buying 2 at a time, but there was a discount for 4, which makes sense. So I bought 4. Let's get started. So it's worth noting that Siobhan has moved to thicker paper this year. That had been her intention for 2025, and circumstances kind of worked against her, but here for the 2026 planners, she's using some thicker papers. This particular one is the Iraful 75 GSM, I believe. So anyway, it's thicker than like a quarterly 52 GSM would be, but it's like a thickness that is extremely familiar to me, and it has a lot of pages. So let's get started. I am blabbering. So it starts here. This is what's called the flyleaf. It's the one that's like glued. So there's a place to put a key. I'll probably put like what year it is on here. There's a blank page, like grid page. The gridding in this book is 4 millimeters. I would consider it to be a very nice darkness. I don't personally have eyesight problems, so I cannot speak to that, but as a person who likes my grid to disappear, it is, we can compare it to some stuff. Here's this year's Just Scribble. This is actually harder to compare because the paper is thinner, and so you can see through it more, and so like other pages kind of self-reinforce the grid. Let's see. I think it's darker this year than last year. So I like it. If you're hard of vision, it's possible to be a little light for you. I can't speak to that. Then there's a truly blank page here. No grid or anything. I probably would have rather there be a grid, but the paper is still see-through enough that you can see the grid behind it, so I'll be fine. And then in the like dated planners, this is like, I think like an annual kind of overview sort of page. It's got these 3 boxes at the top and the grid. Obviously, you can use it for whatever you like. Then a blank grid page and this like kind of calendex for 3 months. This is a quarterly planner, 3 months. I think in the dated planner, this is for annual goals. Here, probably it would make sense to be quarterly goals. Again, it's a pretty flexible page. You can use it for whatever you want. Here are the trackers. So there's a place for, there's 5 spots here for like your once a week kind of habits, and then 1 to 31. They all say 1 to 31 because it is undated and she does not know what month you will use them in. And then, so there's 2 on this page and a 3rd one here. And then just a gridded spot because it only covers 3 months. Then there's this kind of project planner page with 3 undated monthly calendars and 3 like grid sections here. And then a grid page and another one of these kind of box overview kinds of pages. I think, you know, in the dated ones, this would be like a monthly overview, you know, January, a before January overview, then 2 gridded pages, and then we start getting into our weeklies. So the like quintessential Just Scribble layout is this kind of dashboard style layout. This one obviously is undated, but it's got a horizontal 7 days of the week here, a grid thing here on the side, a like checklist one here and another grid, and then some like habit trackers or lists or whatever, a place for focus and priorities. So I like this layout. It's not exactly how I would design it. I tend to like my things to be a little more flexible. I'm happy in a mostly grid, you know, kind of sterling ink, all grid, nothing else kind of thing. I can find containers to be a little constraining, but as a container-based layout goes, I think, you know, I've played around with this and I think it's going to be pretty easy to mold this to what I want. You know, there's a gap between this and that, but these lines are very light. And, you know, there's a darker line here that separates the days, but the things that are separating the containers are quite light, and it's easy to just like go across if you want to. That's true here as well. I think what I'm going to do is actually like chomp into this list for the grid. So some of these containers are a little darker, but those are fine. So it's not how I would design it, but I'm going to find it very livable, and it might be, you know, perfect for you. There's just kind of an ethos thing of like, if you like a more a container style or more of a like a just base grid, do whatever you want kind of style. And then after your weekly, you've got a grid page, which is part of the reason that like, if things here aren't like exactly how I want them, I've got overflow space here if I need something that like grid space seems perfect for. Honestly, there's so much room in here, I'm not going to have a problem. So So there's blank grid, and then there are your 7 days of the week all here. You've got a timeline down the left side, the 4mm grid. It's undated, but it has the day of the week here. I think I'm going to get some stickers or something to put the day of the year in there. In the dated ones, there's like a spot here for it to say what like the month and whatever is. There's not like a clear place to put that here in the undated. On the one hand, I'm glad there's not just like a blank spot. On the other hand, I'm not entirely sure where I want to put it. Obviously, I could write like January up here. Because I don't anticipate using the focus box that much or this wide, I'm tempted to make my own stickers that go right in here and that would say, you know, January 2025. I just want that because when you flip through it later, it's not that fun to be like, okay, well, I know this is the 7th through the 14th, but I don't actually know what month it is. There's plenty of places I could put that, so it's not a big deal. I'm just trying to think. I can put it up here, but because I think I'm going to use up some of that space instead. And so then, yeah, that's the end of your week. And after Sunday, it goes back to your weekly. And because this is an undated planner and they don't know how many weeks are going to be in each month, there are 5 weeks, which you won't always need before you get to this, like, what is in the dated, a monthly recap page where the boxes here are at the bottom, and your next month, like, overview page where the boxes are at the top. And then you've got, you know, your blank spread again, and then your weekly start. You have 5, and then you do it all again for a total of like 3 cycles for your quarterly planner. So I really am thrilled with this. I'm so thankful that Sean released it. It is, I mean, not 100% what I wanted, but like way closer than anything else I could have hoped for. I had been kind of thinking that I was going to have to design something myself or bullet journal or whatever, which would have been fine. But I love supporting her. I love supporting a new shop. And also it's going to be so usable. So let me pull out the one that I've scribbled in if you're curious about kind of how I'm planning on using these spreads. Now, this is a side note, and I think I'm going to make a YouTube video about this. This is a hardcover cover that I made for my Sterling Ink B6 Slim this year, compact, and it fits the quarterlies perfectly. They're the same height and stuff and close enough to the same thickness. So if you'd like to see a video on making a hardcover for this, if you're like wishing you kind of had a Hobonichi Week style thing going on, leave a comment below. I plan to do it, but I can easily get in my head that like no one cares and it's work to film things and why should I bother? So if I have a little verve from you guys, I might go ahead and do that sooner. So here's the one I've been scribbling in, and we can kind of talk about how I'm thinking of using these. The backdrop here is that I am planning on this being my default planner for 2026. But one of the things I have realized about 2026 is that I would like to make it very hopping friendly. That I am not a person who loves being in the same thing week after week. Usually after about 3 months, I get itchy. So that's part of why I love that this is undated. That's kind of why I thought I would only use 2 books for the year of 2026, is like, I could see myself doing 6 months, not all in a row, and hopping into a couple other things, preferably also undated and not full year. So as I said, I'm going to do like a whole lineup video another time, but I do think it's worth mentioning that like my little scribbles here are somewhat informed by the idea that I might be hopping. And again, I'm not going to do a full thing here, but I did buy this Midori birds calendar to be my like dated item. It's called Slim. It's a little smaller than B6 Slim. It's close to Hobonichi Weeks sized. Shorter than that too. Anyway, I bought this to be my like dated thing. So anyway, I didn't talk about this. Each one came with a freebie. This is blotting paper. So I've got this one stuck in here for later. So here are my Post-it scribbles. I don't know if you can read them on here. So I was thinking of maybe putting my like Moxie Lifestyle annual goals here. I can put it, but I also am like, maybe. My plan is to have a passport planner that is my like, it's the smallest size I will ever hop into. It's my annual. I can take it no matter what, like kind of my source of 2026 truth going forward. So I haven't decided about this. I might put them here. I might not. I might put them both places and have the passport one be the one of actual source of truth and this one just to be like almost like a journal. This is what I'm planning on doing. I don't know what to do with this page, but here I was thinking of like kind of a journal that I wrote verbal 2026 version board. Just a little vision casting of what I would like 2026 to include. Maybe to do that before I like set my Moxie Life goals, kind of get my juices flowing. I don't have a plan yet for these pages. I've never been very good at using them in other planners, and it's information I might rather have in a different location for the course of the year so that I don't have to like as I switch between books and whatever. So I haven't really decided, but obviously lots of things that people do here. Habit tracking, except there's an explicit habit tracking, indexing, whatever. I don't usually keep up to this. Here's where I'd put my quarterly goals from Moxie Life. That makes sense to me. Here's my habit tracker, again, as described. I wrote here from weekly. I am a person who has what I call spread amnesia, which is that I never remember to turn the pages. It's just a thing. So what makes most sense to me is actually to do the daily tracking in my weekly where I will see it because it is open, and then to like transcribe this once a week or whatever in here so that I can get like a full month thing, but I'm not always flipping to this. I say that actually in the last couple of months I've been very good at using these kinds of pages, so maybe I'll be fine. We'll see. I often, at the very least, have a habit tracker on my weekly that tells me to go update my habit tracker. So that's how I'd use that. Here's one of the first places I thought about maybe doing meal planning. I only plan lunch and dinner, which actually isn't that large. And I can write very small, so I could fit it in here. I'm not sure it's the best place for it, in which case I think it's a cool page. I'd probably use it for something, maybe some kind of budgeting or something, but that one's still up in the air. Here's where I'd put my Moxie Life monthly goals and actions here, maybe with like a top 3. Could make sense. And then in this black page, there are no monthly pages, but I'm thinking I might draw them here. There are pros and cons to this. The pro is that I'd have a monthly here. I have one in this guy. They're very decorated, which I love. That's part of why I bought it, but not a lot of like sidebar stuff or whatever. So to what extent I will be like scribbling stuff in here versus just referencing it, I'm not sure. This one, it could be very scribbly, in which case that's like a preferred place for me to write some meal plan stuff. All right, my storage space is getting low on my camera, so I got to keep moving. We're almost done anyway. And then the weekly, I tried whiting out here just to see what that looks like, and if my whiteout is this habit tracker, so I could use this as lunch and dinner tracking. They both have 7, so I could use that. My preferred way to habit track is kind of a mix of habit tracking and rolling weekly, which I think would make sense for me to do in this section here. So I draw this over, and then this can be a list for like errands and to do like weekly to-dos and whatever. This then can be my like, well, that's where my to-dos are. I don't know. I'm just testing it. I think that could work fine. There's a lot of space, and in some ways more space than I need. So I've got room to like move things around and see how I feel. Here's where I could do like a weekly brain dump. I also often like to have a weekend list. Often my like to-do lists don't make sense as like on Saturday and on Sunday. Some things do, but lots of things are just sometime during the weekend. So I could make that here, or I could do my Moxie Life review work here. That could make sense too. And then I expect to use these dailies as task lists and journaling. And oh, here's just a different one that I messed around with. If I wanted to have 3 boxes here, I could do that. And I could, you know, use some of these lists for errands and mail or whatever. I'm just playing around. It's in pencil. So that's what I'm thinking. There are some blank pages at the back. I forgot to mention those earlier. So I could put a quarterly review here, and then there's room for, so there's 79 to 89. So there's 10 blank pages per book. And this could be a place for some kind of quarterly length collections or scratch notes or whatever. So that is what I'm planning here. I'm super excited, and I think it's going to work really well for the times in which I wish to use it, and also really well for the times where I don't wish to. I think it's going to be really, really flexible in the way that I currently want my planner to be. So I'm really pumped for that. If you have any questions about it, feel free to leave them below and I will try to answer them. The website has a lot of great information in terms of dimensions and sizes and whatever. So feel free to check that out too. And if you want to see more about how my like journal hopping friendly ecosystem lineup is shaping up, stay tuned for that. Hit the subscribe button, because there's some interesting stuff I'm doing, but also because I do not post regularly enough for the algorithm to show me your video otherwise. Show you my video otherwise. So if that's something you're interested in, I really recommend subscribing, because that's the only way I think that you can be sure you see my stuff. Because the algorithm does not like it when I take months off, and that's just how we are. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll talk again soon. Bye, friends.